Matt Philleo again, working on the military portrait, getting a little closer to being done. And so now it's starting to get fun as we have a little more shading going on and it's looking nicer. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things in bringing the portrait to completion. I don't know how long my battery is going to last here. But just going to go over and darken the neck a little bit, and I want to use a little bit of a reddish tint for that. And we're going to go into it and just darken in. So it would be like a burnt sienna, maybe a little alizarin crimson, but then also toned down by some raw umber dark and maybe a bit of white. Usually use a couple of colors together and just kind of play around with it and see what you get. This area right under his neck by his Adam's apple is a little cooler in tone. So with that, I'm going to add a little ultramarine blue, just a bit of white to lighten up the value. And we'll go in there and cool that down just a little bit. That'll be the area probably, where his little stubble tends to be a little cooler in value. So when you're painting a man, especially with darker hair, you're going to have that effect a lot of times. That kind of 5 o'clock shadow thing going on. And to capture that, you're not going to paint whisker by whisker. You're just going to paint kind of a cooler tone, a bluer or kind of greener tone. And that again matches then even with his uniforms. That's kind of nice. There's a little color harmony going on. In this palette I purposely stuck with a ultramarine blue, that to capture the greens as well. I didn't use a green or even a phthalo blue, which has more of a greenish cast. I just simply stuck with the ultramarine blue. And we'll go in and get a little of that tone right underneath the neckline, going into the chin, that jaw area. I want to darken it just a bit, and this line here shouldn't be quite so precise. So that's one of the things you have to keep in mind, is what parts to have very well defined and what parts to make a little more loose or blurry. And our minds tend to want to order everything and make it neat and clean, when oftentimes it's not. Which really is kind of like our lives in many ways too. Of course, we do need to have some order in our lives, but the events that happen in our lives are often very haphazard and random. And so in the same way, when you're looking at a face, not all the lines are quite as clean as we'd like them to be. So I want to blur that area by his chin just a little bit. And I still need to lighten that up a bit more. Add a bit of white and just soften it off the hair there. Now, as we're getting into this stage, we're starting to get a little more opaque. I never get completely opaque with my layers, but I should say rarely get completely opaque. But I do tend to get more opaque as I get to the final layers. And yet those glazed areas still shine through. And they definitely are the foundation of everything. If you stuck with a complete translucency, painting tends to look a little grainy. So it is good to add a little bit of white or even a yellow ochre, depending on your color, which is a very, yellow ochre is a very opaque pigment, and you can add that to get rid of a little of the transparency effect. Ochres look really nice. Yellow ochre looks really nice mixed in with your flesh tones, as long as you don't overdo it and you add enough, you know, alizarin crimson or red orange hue to compensate for that. I'm going in and just defining this wrinkle here. These wrinkles are really important by the mouth where they smile because it adds a lot of character. And also to define the crow's feet wrinkles up here by his eye. And I suppose if I was doing a portrait of a lady, I might soften that up just a little bit. But with the men, we can get away with putting all those wrinkles in for the most part. And I'll just darken this a little bit more. So what we're doing in this stage is more of the nuances. We have most of the values tackled here, but I want to clarify some nuances. I'm adding a little more up here, and that might have to get softened up just a bit. Use my finger to dab it, but a little bit more right here by his face. You can see it should be just a little darker. I know I'm using a round brush for an area that might be better with a flat, but it does give me a little more control. And sometimes you get a brush and you like it and you just don't want to switch. That's something you have to play by ear. I guess it's a personal thing when you're painting. Obviously you wouldn't want to use a little round brush like this to cover a large area, but once you're getting to the nuance stage, it's kind of nice if you can stick with a brush that's working for you and just work the heck out of it. Just really work it hard and get your money's worth out of that brush. Adding a little more nuances in his ear. Again, some of the tones in the ear have more of that greenish gray color like what's found in his chin. And getting some of those varieties of colors are very important in making the skin tones believable. So we get that in there just a little bit, and I don't want to overdo it, but I can always go back over it and soften it up if I need to. I just think it's nice to have some of that variety in there. And again, the beauty of the glazing technique is you can go back and soften up anything that you need to. So I don't want his chin to be as smooth as a cue ball. And add a little dimple here because I see that in the picture, just a little imperfection. These little imperfections in the face really are just the, you know, like a dimple or what have you. They're just part of what makes us unique. And so if you don't include them, it does kind of take away from the realism. Now obviously with a portrait commission, I can customize things. So if a customer says, hey, I'd like you to remove a pimple or something, or give me a little more hair, or make me a little thinner, well, you can do that, and I have done that, but I try not to overdo it, because obviously if you take too many liberties with that, it can end up not looking like the person. So you have to kind of know where to quit with those things. Do just enough to make it nice for the customer. So with that, I'm going to stop right there, and these are some of the neat little details you can do at the end of the painting. It's not finished yet, but we're getting there. and hope you enjoyed this little training video. Please subscribe to my art e-updates at mattphilleo.com if you find this valuable, and you can get art lessons, art tutorials sent right to your inbox. So anyway, happy painting, be blessed, and we'll talk to you soon.